Good morning and welcome to Community Conversations. I'm Vicki Green. Today we are talking about poverty in the region and the state, how it's defined, maybe some misconceptions and programs that are available, and people who are there to help. So in studio today are two of those people, Jill DeGillis, Executive Director of the Worcester Community Action Council, who is also on Worcester Business Journal's Power 50 list in 2018. Good morning.
Good morning, Vicki.
And we have Mary Niddle, who's the Director of Energy Resources, including Fuel Assistance, which is also at the Worcester Community Action Council. So thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having us.
You bet. So, Joe, why don't you start out? What is the CAC? And again, it's a big organization, and you're going to describe it with a $22 million annual budget, over 100 employees, and you service 75,000 people a year. So what is it? What are the towns you serve?
Sure. Thank you, Vicki, for having us on again. Worcester Community Action Council is the federally designated anti-poverty agency for Worcester and 45 surrounding communities in Central Mass. We do go by WCAC. It's quick and easy. But we're well known. We've been around since President Johnson's Economic Opportunity Act, when we were then created by local leaders, City Manager Francis McGrath, business leaders, faith leaders at that time. And so we have a long, rich track record in trying to help people move forward to economic self-sufficiency. It's a wide range of programs that we provide, from education for little ones, and education and employment for young adults from 16 to 24 years old. We have a strong workforce development program that we partner here with the City of Worcester on, and many others. Energy, a large energy program that is both fuel assistance and energy efficiency, and Mary will talk at length about that. Mm-hmm. And then asset development. Over the years, we've had a variety of asset development programs. We'll talk today about VITA, the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program, which is happening right now. So it's, again, in many cases, we're helping people from the edge of emergencies, people we see every day who are struggling with how to pay their bills, or should they pay for their heat, or their meds, or their food. And we have a great dedicated staff and board of directors who help us get this job done. It's incredible, but it's a really great pay-it-forward business.
And Jill, you've been before we were talking about, you were with the city for many, many years. You've been with CAC for how long?
I've been at WCAC for 13 years, and with the city just under 25 years. So my life focus has been about giving back and community development.
Yeah, and that's why I love having people on the show, because we have people listening who may be on the edge of poverty. They don't want to admit it. They have a friend, they have a relative in Massachusetts. So you cover Worcester and 45 surrounding communities, is that right?
That's right, and primarily down to the southern border of Massachusetts, so as far down as Southbridge, for example.
Okay, so Mary, you were also telling me before we get to the energy piece of this, that there are other agencies, especially with fuel assistance, and there's other community action councils around the state, should someone be listening from outside the region.
Yes, we would encourage people to, first of all, know that there are a community action network here in Massachusetts. There are 23 of us across the state and about 1,100 across the country that do this work.
Right, so it's amazing. So, Mary, fuel assistance is defined as what?
Fuel assistance we're actually actively rebranding it more as heating assistance, so that the image that is frequently conjured of Joe Kennedy standing at a Cape house with a little old lady and an oil tank, that's just the tip of the iceberg. The fuel assistance program will pay people's heating bills regardless of their source. We pay for wood, we pay for gas, We pay for electricity. We can help households that are owner-occupied, or for people who are tenants, and even people whose heat is included in their rent. Sometimes people have an old electric bill that they can't manage, and therefore they can't move to a better place because they can't get the lights turned on. We can help people with all of that. So all of the heating needs that households face, we can help one way or another.
So before we get to how that's funded, if someone knows somebody, again, they may not want to come forward, or they have an elderly parent that's having trouble with their bills, paying for the fuel, they can go to the Worcester Community Action Council's website, right, and find out how to apply, because as we were talking about before the show, there's different ways that things that they have to go through to apply for that.
That's right. We do outreach in a number of communities on a regular basis. Our service territory, in addition to going as far south as Southbridge, we go out as far as West Warren. It's challenging in some of the more rural communities to come all the way into Worcester to complete an application. So we bring our team out there on a very regular basis. People who are interested on behalf of somebody else or themselves can go on the website, which is wcac.net, and get more information. And we have more than pretty regularly received tips from somebody that say, my mom won't come in, she's afraid, she doesn't want anybody to see her. We'll call these people. People who have accessibility issues, we can help them meet those as well.
Yeah, and I think that's important. So are you seeing the number of applicants for fuel assistance in particular increase? And if so, why?
We accept applications for the programs from November through April.
Okay.
This year, the number of applicants who are applying for the first time has increased about 3%. Mm-hmm. Our overall application numbers are stable. And that is without any real serious weather. We've had a pretty mild winter
Agreed.
altogether. We've had some very, very cold days, but sometimes it's the snowstorms that really panic people. So that hasn't happened. And at the same time, many of the people who have already applied, their benefit has already been used up. So it's an ongoing challenge. So people who have paid for an oil delivery in November and they're facing an empty tank today, there's still plenty of time to apply. You can apply right up through the end of April for energy usage that goes back to the beginning of the program.
So if they've run out of the benefit, they can reapply?
If they run out of the benefit, there are other sources, which brings us to the other topic, is that the state of Massachusetts benefit was decreased this year by $11 million. Wow. The federal allocation was increased. There's great bipartisan support across the country for the LIHEAP program.
LIHEAP stands for, I'm sorry?
LIHEAP is the Low Income Heating Assistance Program. Okay. The northern states, they're cold states. The southern states use the LIHEAP funding for cooling. So if your driveways are melting because it's 125 degrees in Arizona, LIHEAP is helping those people as well. But the allocation in Massachusetts was cut, and we'll be going to Washington, D.C. In the coming weeks to do a little advocacy and education with our elected officials and people nationally. But the program has not been ever designed to pay for people's entire heating bill. Mm-hmm. That said, many people cannot afford their heating expenses in New England, and we have other resources that we help to refer them to when their benefit is gone, and hopefully this year in the Massachusetts supplemental budget, they might find a little additional funding for us as well.
Right, and as you said, bipartisan. I mean, this whole issue, Jill, I don't think it's a partisan issue. I've never seen it be a partisan issue. I mean, healthcare can be. The way they go about funding it can be. But I don't think anybody on either side of the aisle, and especially I know in Massachusetts, Republican, Democrat, it's a different situation from it's an anomaly as far as in my opinion, that we have a Republican governed Democratic Senate and House and Congress, but we get along. And I think our Republican definition is very different in this state. If you're from this state, so that said, on the federal level, do you think there's going to be any issues coming up? I mean, the State of the Union was earlier this week. I mean, do you think there's going to be any issues coming forward as far as any of these anti-poverty initiatives?
Well, I think that's a great question, Vicki, because what happened with the government shutdown is a prime example of how fragile the lines are for people economically. For all those folks who had good federal jobs with benefits and good wages, when they were not being paid and were furloughed and out of work, all the news reports were about people waiting in line at food banks, unable to pay their bills or their mortgage. And that is what is called situational poverty, but that's how fragile the lines are for so many people that we serve, from seniors, veterans, families with young children working 2 or 3 jobs. So the decisions and policies at the federal level, from the federal to the state level, really do matter. The decisions around our funding, which is primarily federally funded, are affected. Right now, we're okay with our Community Service Block Grant, our Head Start funds, and with the LIHEAP. However, that has wavered, and we continue to watch it, and we continue to advocate for the people we serve. Advocacy is one of our strongest pieces of work that we do, and we continue to hold up a loud message and a bright light on this work and on the need. The statewide report that we worked on with MassCap, our state association, is an example with all the data in it that shows, and that's, again, linked on our website, to demonstrate the need here in Massachusetts alone. And we are one of 50 states that have these kinds of challenges. People in every community across the country are facing these problems. So it's a little bit of a long answer to your question, but it does matter from federal to state to local.
So, defining poverty, I know it can be difficult. But how do, I know there's statistics and numbers because you also help with SNAP, right, which is the old food stamp program.
Yes.
Which is people that need any kind of, that's what's so great about the Worcester Community Action Council is that it's everything from Head Start to job training to, like you mentioned at the beginning, it's an amazing organization, which I didn't know all of the services that were provided until we talked about doing the show. How do they define poverty from a numbers perspective? Isn't there a percentage of the poverty level?
There are several formulas, and it varies, as Mary can describe, by different programs. So our work is about verifying people's income. Typically, it's by household size and household income that they can qualify for fuel assistance, for example, or the energy programs. The household of two, 60% of the estimated state median income is $46,437, and that's an annual income. So that's not a lot of money to live on and pay all the bills. That's just one example and some income guidelines that drives our work. Other programs, like our Job and Education Center program, we must verify the income, residential status, and SNAP is another verifying income program, but there's a range of what we must verify. In other cases, when we have funds that we've raised, we can be a little bit more flexible.
So out of your budget, percentage raised versus grants is about what? Because I know you have a lot of people that have been incredible donors and corporations that donate.
Right. We're about 85% publicly funded, and then we're constantly pursuing grants, philanthropic giving, private donations, corporate donations. The local community and region that we are in, Central Mass, the businesses are very, very giving and supportive. From the hospitals to law firms and banks and credit unions, people are really stepping up to volunteer, to give of their own time and dollars, and corporate donations as well. We're really very fortunate to have great partnerships, and we work on that. We work on making sure that people know what we do and who we are and how their dollars will make a difference. Every dollar does matter.
And a very small percentage of it is administrative cost. I think people should understand that your budget has a very, under 10%, right? Under 10%.
Well, it's about 10 or 11%.
Yeah, that's
depending.
tiny.
Yes.
Tiny.
And it's very tight. And we put, again, when we don't have fancy offices, they're very humble. We're in the Denholm building that we affectionately call home in Worcester, and a couple of other sites, one in Southbridge and one in Webster for our Head Start program and Healthy Families. But we live very conservatively in terms of what our overhead is, what our space is like. We want to make sure it's accessible for people to get in and out of, that there's parking in a reasonable area, distance to the offices, and that public transportation is available. These are all things we take into consideration when we say, where are we located? Who do we serve?
And our clients, when we talk about what they can do to help, giving feedback to elected officials about how valuable these programs are to them is helpful to us, because even when it comes to administration, we're still processing fuel assistance applications that we received in October.
Oh, my goodness.
And that's the nature of the program. We took almost 14,000 applications last year. We mailed them out during the summer. We received them all back in September and October. So you get 14,000 complete applications, 4 or 5 people, households, income, a lot of verifying. It's serious work. And we have wonderful staff, compassionate, caring people who work really hard with people who are not having their best day. It's not always your best day when you come in to apply for fuel assistance or some of our other programs. And we try to meet the people where they are, help them to understand the documents that are required by the government to receive the benefits, and then ultimately to complete their application. Once they've completed the application and they are eligible for a benefit for this program, we can make appropriate referrals to other programs that we have, such as the Job and Education Center or Head Start. We focus on heating and energy efficiency, because if somebody's heating system isn't working and they own their home, we can even replace it, but we can do emergency repairs when that's needed. That goes a long way to supporting particularly the seniors in the community who have been putting off that repair or that replacement, and we don't want them to run out of heat on a cold night.
Absolutely not. We don't want anybody. And then it also becomes a danger because people will start illegally heating with their stoves and things. We've seen it,
Right.
causing a fire danger, et cetera. So, Jill, you had said when we were starting earlier that there was a very large percentage, well, a fairly large percentage of seniors
Yes.
that are on fuel assistance. And I don't think people understand that. And a lot of them don't want to be.
Well, years ago, seniors wouldn't come in. They would say, give it to the young families with the babies and children. But more and more, seniors are on such fixed incomes that they do need and they will come in for assistance. Typically, it's family members who are coming in to help them apply. And many seniors don't have a computer or don't access the website or an internet. So we want to make sure that people know they can call our offices as well and or encourage family members to help them apply. And then if we can't provide services directly, separate from heating assistance, we have strong and far-reaching collaborations and partnerships. And that's with the Chambers of Commerce, the United Ways in our region, the municipalities, the city and towns, the councils on aging. So we have a very wide net that we cast in terms of the organizations that we work with so that we can really be sure that we can help. If we can't provide it, here's where you can go. Because it's a big world of nonprofits and networks and services that hard to maneuver, hard to figure out some days, particularly for seniors, because it could be pretty complicated or the paperwork can seem complicated. We try to make it easy. We try to make it so that they're able to get their benefits quickly and efficiently and stay warm. Being warm is number one health concern. Hunger, homelessness, heating, those are core foundations of keeping people warm, safe, healthy. And we're really committed to that from our board of directors and partners to our frontline staff.
Right, and I know you also work with the Central Mass Housing Alliance, just as help with referrals and things like that, which deals with homelessness in the city, which people equate with poverty, and so that's all part of the net. So if you're just joining us today on Community Conversations, I have in studio with me today Jill DeGillis, who's Executive Director of the Worcester Community Action Council, and Mary Niddle, who's Director of the Energy Resources Program for the Worcester Community Action Council. So we've been talking about poverty, about the programs that the Worcester Community Action Council offers, and the partnerships. You can go to WCAC.net to follow up on information. If you want to look at how to apply for things, what services are offered, you can also call the number. All of the information is on that website. So if you have a member of your family or a neighbor or that you have a child that is in high school and having trouble and wants to get in maybe a work training or job opportunity program, or you're a young parent who's going to give birth and you're not sure about childcare, these are all things you can go to WCAC.net to get some more information about. So let's talk now about misconceptions, because I know just anecdotally, and I'm sure you have this is not a surprise to many people, you might hear when you talk about poverty or homelessness. I had the opportunity years ago to drive around with an organization trying to get homeless folks who were living in tents and makeshift homes under bridges, and this was in the city of Worcester. And a lot of them were so proud. They said, "No, we don't want to go." And the officers and the helpers were saying, "No, but we can at least go bring you to the soup kitchen. You can get some food down the street and then come back." They were too proud. The thing is, do you think there's still a misconception about who's on the street, who's in maybe low income or in a poverty situation? Because people think, oh, they're just drug addicts, they don't work, they're on welfare, they're illegal immigrants, they're uneducated, they're lazy, they're not finding a job. I mean, what do you say to those people?
We have so many stories of people who come in and said, I'm trying to get a job, or I'm trying to get my GED, now called HiSET, High School Equivalency Test. And when they come in the door, they're in many cases downtrodden. When they graduate, within a year or two, they're so proud and they're moving on to jobs or higher education or the military. We have stories of young families, a young woman who took the bus in from the Brookfields, I believe it was,
Wow.
With her little one, every day, as many days as she could get in to get her GED, and she achieved that and moved on to a job. We have a young man who was at our recent graduation, And he had his 2 little boys with him because his wife was working. As he graduated, he had a toddler, 3 years old, sitting next to him, and a baby in a carriage sitting next to him. And he was feeding the baby the bottle during the graduation and managing all that beautifully, got his graduation, his high-set degree, and then was moving on to a job. These are real stories of real people who are not lazy and sitting around. We see that every single day. And our teachers are there for them regardless of what they need. And then many will come in, they'll be hungry. And so we have a small food kitchen area for them. And we celebrate the kids, we have cook-offs, just different events that really pull them in and help them achieve what they need. In many cases, we'll refer them to Dress for Success for clothing, or we have a small wardrobe. There are little things that go a long way to help these young people feel better and move on. And truly, that's what they do. 99 and 9/10% of these young people are moving on. Others may have to come back 2 or 3 times, but eventually they do move on.
Yeah, and it's amazing. On your website, you have some really interesting customer success stories. You call them customers, or just success stories that are amazing. So if anybody gets to go to WCAC.net and take a look at those, I have them printed here. I went through them. There's some really powerful things, and it must make you feel like the work you're doing. I mean, you see it in the people every day.
We do.
And it betters the community, which we all live in, and everybody listening to. And again, there's community action councils, not just in our region. I mean, you're here representing Worcester in the Central Mass area, but there are other. Fitchburg has its own, and there's probably one towards Boston and one probably out in Springfield. So there's all of these other organizations that people can go to online. And
There are, and I would suggest that people check with MassCap, our state association, because we all have different names. And so they're not all called community action agencies, but they are, in fact, the community action agencies in the state.
Okay, so there's 2 last things that I want to get to before we wrap up. Wage disparity. I didn't realize until I looked at some data from the Central Mass Housing Alliance about the affordability and the wage gap in how much a 2-bedroom apartment in Worcester costs and versus how you can afford that on a minimum wage. So, it's not surprising that most of these studies I've seen, not just their data, have said that Massachusetts is one of the top 10 most expensive states in the nation to live in. I think we know that. We live here and work here. And that said, the minimum wage is going up. Right?
Yes.
So it just went up this year, and it's going to go up to $15. Do you think that is going to? It's definitely not a negative thing, but I hear from employers they're concerned about it. People may lose their job because of it, because then they have to, or their productivity, they're going to try to do more with less people. So I'm not expecting anyone to say that's a bad thing that the minimum wage goes up. But do you think we're going to see the housing market? I mean, it's going to be difficult still. Is it going to be? Do you think it's going to help people be able to afford in the area?
I'll start by saying we have been advocating for the minimum wage to be raised. People cannot live on the minimum wage. Benefits, minimum wage doesn't help people pay for their housing, their food, their transportation. So we support that. The reality of equalizing the scales of economic opportunity are hard. And we look, for example, at all the great development that's going on here in Worcester as an opportunity to be providing opportunities for all so that affordable housing will still be maintained, that people will not be moved out of this community, but rather be celebrated and embraced and enjoy the rise that all the development is happening. So minimum wage, development, a squeeze on the housing market, all of those things are strategies that a community must come together around, whether it's just the community or it's the state and federal government. And it's hard work. Some of these formulas have been in place for 50 years. That's what has to change.
You mean figuring out
policies and formulas that say, here's what the poverty levels
Right.
are. Here's what the SNAP levels are. And so that's a big piece of work we must do. I do want to highlight too, Vicki, before we close, the VITA program. It's a great asset development program that is run with pennies for administrative oversight, but primarily run with volunteers who are certified, IRS certified, to do free tax preparation. Mm-hmm. We do this at WCAC with about a dozen partners here in Worcester and into southern Worcester County, and help people get their taxes prepared for free rather than having to pay high fees for those tax prep services. That's running now. So I would encourage people to go to the website and find out more about that. And lastly, I would say that people can help and get active by donating their time and certainly donating their dollars, because we can stretch those contributions, and they can go to early education and care, they can go to the job center, they can go to emergency funding for heating. It really matters when people give, and when corporate companies and banks give those CRA dollars back to the community, to organizations like ours, and we can make a difference with that. Our staff are very modestly paid. They are really committed to the work. Many of the staff have been here for 10, 15, 20, and 30 years. They really care about the people we serve. And so that's sort of one of my final messages, that it takes this village, it takes this community to make this work happen, and paying it forward really is a good way to look at it. And we would encourage anyone to come see us, call us, visit us, and see how they can help or give or find out more about how to get services.
And I'd just like to add to what Jill's saying. If you can't give your time and your dollars, give your awareness and give your compassion and share this news with friends and family that you think may benefit. We hear from people all the time that say, I don't want people to think I'm poor. That's not it. People who have worked, people who are on Social Security, you've paid into this. This is what we're here for. We're here to support you through a difficult time. If you lost your job, we're not looking at what your salary was before your job lost. If you haven't had income for the past 30 days, that's zero income. That's that situational poverty we were talking about. The circumstances are wide and varied, and we have the flexibility and agility to help support you no matter what your circumstances are. So get in touch with us, and we'll see if we can take the pressure off just a little bit. If we pay an electric bill, it leaves you, just might make that difference, that everything else will fall into place.
And again, it's wonderful. And if anybody, again, I'm going to repeat it again, the website for Worcester Community Action Council is wcac.net. So there are guidelines for these things, and their WCAC is here to work you through that. And Jill, at the end here, as we wrap up, you did an opinion piece in the Telegram in 2018 that said, quote, "Poverty is a complex problem and won't be solved overnight." So I just want to let that sit with people, and that it takes, as you said, it takes the village, it takes people helping. There's a lot of people that obviously donate, and there's not a lot of dollars, and there's a lot of groups that need your donations. You can volunteer, you can donate, you can go to your company that you work for and say, a lot of them have fundraisers, allow you to donate through your paycheck, and you can say, listen, this is where I wanted to go. I wanted to go to the Worcester Community Action Council or another council around the state that can help these people. 75,000 people a year are being helped. So thank you, Jill DeGillis and Mary Niddle, so much for coming in. I appreciate it. Again, poverty is a huge topic. Homelessness is an entire show to itself that I will do at some point. But I hope people will listen to what we're talking about and keep the discussion going. So that's Community Conversations. I'm Vicki Green. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful